So, I'm finally back to doing what I said I was going to do a while ago now. Finally covering Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. This has been a long time coming, but this time I intend to go through with it, and this time copyright isn't going to stop me. So when I use a clip with audio, it's going to be edited to avoid being claimed like what happened in my Justice League video. Out of all three of Snyder's movies, this one is easily the most hated. Well, over the past couple of years, there have been those coming out of the woodwork to defend this movie, especially after the release of the Snyder Cut back in 2021, often citing the Ultimate Edition as being the good version of BVS, like how the Snyder Cut is apparently the good version of Justice League. Yeah, can't we see how well that holds up? Let's start by saying, love the Snyder movies as much as you want. I'm not trying to take away your enjoyment of these movies, it's just I want to put my perspective out there and try to let others understand why I hate these movies and why I think that they suck. Because they do. Now I'll address the fanbase for these movies by the time this series is done. So grab some Jolly Ranchers, because this is likely going to be a long video. The movie begins with a funeral of the Waynes as young Bruce runs off. Cut to earlier where the Waynes are leaving the theaters, a guy with a gun walks up to them. So why is the mugger robbing them right in the middle of the open street? Who in their right mind robs the richest people in the city right in the middle of the sidewalk? He's not even wearing a mask to conceal his face. All it's going to take is someone just walking out the door and they can visibly see what's going on and report the mugger to police and give a description of his face. The reason that the death of Bruce's parents happens in an alley so that the mugging and killing won't be visible to potentially dozens of witnesses. The place is literally called Crime Alley because of those murders. It's only a minute and 37 seconds in, and we already shown the sheer stupidity of this movie. Thomas Wayne stupidly tries charging the guy with a ranged weapon when he's a decent distance away from him, and he inevitably gets shot. Joe Chill puts his gun right up to Martha, destroying her necklace, which is a weird way to kill her just to have the iconic imagery of her necklace being broken. These deaths are very slow and overly dramatic, especially with the usage of slow-mo. Considering how many times we've seen Batman's Uncle Ben moment from the movies alone, not even counting the shows or games, this comes across as unnecessary and filler, especially when Bruce heads to their graves later on. So if there is concern about casual audiences not knowing Batman's origin, this movie could still easily do that in a much better way. Such as in The Batman, we don't see the deaths, but they're still used as an important plot point in the movie. Or have it be quick, like in the Joker movie, since that was just a background element, not what the movie was focused on. But as it stands, it's honestly one of the weaker versions of the scene, if you ask me. And I think Batman Begins handles it a lot better with how quick it was in that film too, and what Thomas says during those scenes. In Begins, Thomas spends his last moments trying to comfort his son while he's dying, and since we see some of their relationship to each other, it leaves more impact for the audience. While here, Thomas just says, Martha, for nothing more than setting up for one of the most pivotal scenes in this entire movie, unfortunately. It seems weird to me that a supposed loving father wouldn't try to comfort his son for a moment that he knows will traumatize him for the rest of his life, and instead reaches out to his already dead wife. Speaking of what Batman Begins does better than this movie, I thought that the Batwell scene was handled much better there as well. Particularly how dumb it looks when Bruce levitating from the well as the bats surround him. I get it's supposed to reference Paradise Lost, but it looks so dumb when in motion. Once again, being overly dramatic than what it needs to be. In Begins, it was quick, simple, and accurately showed why Bruce would be traumatized from this. That's all it needed to do. There's a time skip to the Battle of Metropolis at the end of Man of Steel. Bruce travels there by a helicopter and gets inside a car. Why would Bruce be allowed to enter the city? The military would sure prevent anybody from entering, even through means of flight, and they would clear the airspace to prevent their jets from hitting civilian aircraft. And Bruce isn't even the one piloting the thing, so why wouldn't the pilot get a warning to stay back and leave? Bruce makes a call to his friend at the Wayne Enterprise building in the city, telling them to evacuate the building. Wait. Just now you decide to evacuate. After minutes of seeing the World Engine ravage the city, and your first instinct isn't run away for your lives? Do they need permission for Bruce just to leave? That's so stupid. But hey, I guess this is consistent with Man of Steel, with people not evacuating until the destruction is right upon them. So we get an immediately cool car chase scene as Bruce evades falling debris and destruction, and we even see the ship crashing after Superman committed space abortion. And it's also nice knowing that the action caused more civilian casualties. Great job, Clark. What a good hero you are. Bruce stops when there's a crowd of people just standing there bundled up instead of running for their lives as they witness the plane crashing into the ship, causing a black hole to destroy it. Showing once again that Zack Snyder doesn't understand how black holes work, since that should have destroyed the entire planet. Granted, in Justice League, Zack shows he doesn't understand how the banking system or IRS work, so at least his lack of intelligence should be expected. While we're still on the lack of intellect, why has Bruce's friend not left yet? Superman and Zod crash into a building where Zod starts using his laser eyes and ends up killing the guy. Well, that's your own damn fault, you moron. Bruce runs into a cloud of dust where he and several others should eventually be dead due to lung cancer and respiratory issues, which is what happened to many people after 9/11, but never mind that. Bruce helps out one of his employees by lifting a steel beam from his legs, and he sees a little girl who's about to be crushed, but he saves her. He asks her where her mom is, and she points inside the ruined building. The two Kryptonians crash land on Earth as Bruce is somehow able to see him as he watches in anger. So this is the inciting incident for Bruce's hatred against Superman in this movie, and due to how stupid it is that the one dude didn't legally have the chance, and how hollow the friendship is between them since we never seen him before this scene, and he's never brought up again. Meaning the title conflict of the movie isn't off to a strong start. In the Indian Ocean, the residents find the kryptonite from the generator Clark destroyed in the last movie, where we get a pretty landscape shot. In Africa, Lois meets with Jimmy Olsen to interview an African general, and the first question she asked him is this.
Are you a terrorist?
What kind of journalist would ask that? Anyway, the head Russian military, who's KG Beast from the comics, so I'm just going to refer to him as such for the rest of this review, starts to go through Jimmy's camera and he finds a beeping tracker inside of it. Confronted with this, Jimmy admits he's a CIA spy, that Lois is innocent, and they simply used her as a cover story. First off, why put the tracker inside the camera? Wouldn't that be the most obvious place to hide the tracker in? Why not just surgically implant the tracker inside him, or some other creative method to hide it? How did KG Beast even know that the tracker is in there? What prompted him to search for it? It just comes out of nowhere. But we don't have time to worry about that because the general shoots Jimmy in the head. Yes, Jimmy Olsen, a popular well-known Superman side character, instead only 15 minutes into the movie. I hope Zack doesn't decide to kill off any more beloved side characters for no reason later on. A CIA drone camera witnesses this whole thing, so keep that in mind because it's going to be important later. They take Lois hostage instead of killing her for whatever reason. The general has a one-on-one with her on how ignorance isn't the same as innocence. Outside, KG Beast and his guys start to kill all the African terrorists, and if you notice, some of the guys don't react until it's their turn to be on screen. One shot has a guy start shooting before he even fully lifts his gun. The general takes Lois by gunpoint, and the Russians pile the African bodies and burn them with a flamethrower. Some American soldiers on horseback start to head their way to rescue Lois, but the higher-ups are going to airstrike the place with drone missiles. Well, lo and behold, Superman shows up to destroy it, and he lands inside the building Lois is in. So if you're Superman, a guy with super speed, heat vision, and invulnerability, what would you do in this situation? I think that considering Superman cares about human life and sees the good in everyone, that he'll try to take this guy down alive if he can't talk him down. So let's see what this genius does.
What the hell was that?
So, much like what happened at the end of Man of Steel, Superman doesn't use his powers to easily stop this guy, and resorts to killing him. But apparently this guy is still alive, according to Snyder himself.
I'm the magical man from Happy Land in a gumdrop house on Lollipop Lane. Oh, by the way, I was being sarcastic.
Which is bullshit, considering he ran him through several walls. This is like how he tries to explain why Darkseid forgot the name and location of Earth in his version of Justice League, even though that didn't make any sense and it wasn't even the movie to begin with. So I think that you guys really need to stop using the word of God Snyder to try and defend stuff like that, because everything that comes out of his mouth just makes them even worse. Back in America, one of the women from the village testifies against Superman, claiming he killed those guys back there. Wait, what? So apparently these people are so stupid in this movie, they actually buy the idea that he killed them with guns and bullets?
Well, Superman is shown to be able to control the intensity of his heat vision, so he could have just used a less powerful version of his laser.
First off, fire went to hide the bullet holes, and all the lead and shrapnel that should be all over the place. Forensics are able to tell if a burnt body has bullet holes, or even some bullets could still be inside of them, especially since some of them were clearly shot multiple times. Superman's heat vision is shown to be able to destroy alien metal hulls, human military vehicles, and is shown to cut through people like hot knife through butter. They should be cut to pieces, not charred and on fire. I think my friend here put this very well.
People have defended the flamethrower by being like, well, it can lower the intensity of his heat vision. And I'm just sitting there like, so you're really going to tell me he sat there and
I
methodically,
remember that.
he sat there and methodically panned his eyes up and down every body with lowered heat vision and waited to burn them all.
Not to mention, the tank was very clearly destroyed with a grenade, so why would Superman destroy the tank with that instead of his powers? I would also like to ask where the flamethrower is. If you look at the Russians as they leave, none of them have it, so that must mean they left it behind. So it should be very obvious that those guys were not killed by Superman, and this is a very obvious framing, and that the lady is lying. Especially since US soldiers were there after the fact, and Lois was there the whole time, so why is she not here to testify? And what about the CIA drone footage? It recorded that Jimmy was killed by the general, and presumably it saw the whole thing. Why aren't they revealing this information? Some might say that the big bad villain of this movie has the CIA paid off. May I ask for a source?
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Because that's not in the movie at all. And as I said, I don't care if Snyder confirms that in an interview, because that is not a defense. So one of the main plot lines of this movie is completely broken, and relies on everybody being stupid idiots. Awesome! What a great movie! Now we have our Batman introduction scene. Two cops are called to a scene while they're watching a Metropolis vs. Gotham City football match. Don't you get it, guys? That's a microcosm for this movie. Isn't that clever?
I get it.
I don't get it.
So the cops head inside and find these foreign girls saying that a devil has saved them. Apparently Batman, who has been stated to be around for 20 years, is still an urban myth. I get that these girls are foreign, but I have a hard time believing that news of Batman hasn't spread around the world, especially in a world which has phones and social media. One of the cops heads upstairs to see the sex trafficker being handcuffed to an AC unit or something like that. He spots Batman hiding in the corner?
He's just standing there, menacingly!
How did you not see him earlier? He's hiding in the corner and the lights are on. Camera is framed in a way where we can't see him, but in universe, the cops should. But hey, if the movie didn't do that, we wouldn't have this cool, epic reveal shot showing how cool Batman is. The cop tries shooting at him, but Batman somehow climbs the wall like Spider-Man and escapes. Not sure how he's able to do that, since we never see him do that ever again. The cops notice that the criminal has been branded. More on that later. Lois arrives in her apartment where she pulls out her book, which was hit by one of the bullets, and she pulls it out. Why would she be allowed to keep that when that should be used as evidence? No clue. Lois stalks her bathtub where Clark shows up, claiming that he doesn't care about the hearings against him. Foreseeing this is an unbearably long and drawn out scene where the two make out in the bathtub. The issue of them lacking chemistry from Man of Steel still applies here. Instead of these movies developing their relationship like the first two Dawn of Superman films, the animated series, or the recent My Adventures with Superman show, these movies just resort to having long, awkward makeout scenes even when their placement is inappropriate when they take place. The romance came out of nowhere in Man of Steel, and this movie doesn't even try to make it better. And they expect us to care when, spoiler alert, Superman dies near the end of this movie. I'm going to talk about this again when that scene happens, because considering how important this relationship is to Snyder's original plan, and why that's not a good thing. In the Batcave, Bruce walks in and Alfred's introduced. And much like what I said in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Alfred is one of the best parts of this movie. The first second we see him, we already have a good line. Alfred is basically untouchable no matter what version of him there is. I don't think we've had a single better version of him in the games, shows, or comic. And this movie is no exception. And Jeremy Irons is a great casting choice for him. What I'm not a fan of is Batman's new voice modulator. I get that they're taking criticism for Christian Bale's Batman voice due to how garbly and raspy it is, especially in The Dark Knight Rises. But I'm not a fan of how robotic it is in this movie. Bruce is investigating KGBs and someone named the White Portuguese. Alfred brings up the Bat branding, asking about the new rules. While I was praising Alfred a second ago, I have to ask, why is he okay with Bruce killing? Seems out of character for him to be okay with it, or not to leave Bruce due to his behavior. In fact, Gordon from Justice League also never brings it up in that movie as well. That especially makes no sense, considering Gordon's always a guy that's willing to work with Batman and won't hesitate to bring him in if he ever crosses the line. Next, we're introduced to... Oh no. No. Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg. Let's just open the floodgates right now. He was very much miscast as Lex. His acting is so hammy and over the top, you can't take him seriously. And his dialogue is so terrible, it's not even funny either, due to his weird noises he constantly makes, as him constantly hitting or slapping something. Let's just cue the montage of Lex being a complete jackass.
Ahoy, ahoy! No, ma'am. A whale! Ah. Yes. Yes. The red capes are coming. The red capes are coming. Blah, blah, blah. True! No. No, what am I? Boys! Ow! Wow! Yes, I would. Fight! Martha. Now run! The bat. Hello? I'll learn. Ding dong. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding.
He doesn't look anything like Lex Luthor, even at the end of the movie, and he honestly looks like a complete loser. I'm gonna go more in depth about his character later on and what the movie was trying to go for, so let's head back to the here and now. So Lex is making a deal with the government, particularly through Senator Fincher, who's played by the same lady that was Elastigirl from The Incredibles. His deal is that since he has kryptonite that's capable of killing Kryptonians, having learned this from experimenting on Zod's body, that for whatever reason Clark just left there instead of giving him a proper burial or cremation by throwing his body into the sun or something. You know, something that Superman would do. Back to Lex, he starts making a deal with one of the government guys in exchange for his services. He should have government permission to use kryptonite, unlimited access to the Kryptonian ship that Superman also just left behind for whatever reason, as well as access to Zod's body. And the guy just goes along with it, no questions asked. Which is strange considering how very obviously weird and insane Luthor is, in that he allows this kid that acts like he's on the very extreme end of the spectrum. No, now that I mention it, I'm pretty sure even people that are on the extreme end of the spectrum are anywhere near this level of jackassery. Why does Lex need the government permission to kill Superman? Dude, you're rich. You can just ship the kryptonite through illegal means. I'm pretty sure you could rob any dock officer to turn a blind eye if given enough of your chump change. Also, why is Lex walking into the ship without a hazmat suit while he passes a guy who is wearing one? It would be smart for him to wear that for safety reasons, since you don't know what the ship might have in terms of alien microbes or anything like that, but he's rich, so I'm guessing he just has immunity to all diseases. But then, at the end of the scene, we have a piece of product placement that wouldn't be out of place in the Michael Bay movie.
Worst product placement ever.
Zach, this isn't funny, it's stupid. This whole damn movie is stupid, oh my god. In Clark's apartment, he starts cooking some really fake looking eggs.
Bruh.
While Kaina asks him on TV how he determines which lives count and which ones don't. Remember that guy Bruce saved in the beginning of the movie? Well, he shows up again to vandalize the memorial of those who died from the last movie, due to being mad at Superman for causing him to lose his legs. If Superman is such a controversial figure, like what this movie makes him out to be, why build a statue in honor of him? Clark sees this on TV at the Daily Planet, and then he heads to Gotham City, and now I'd like to ask, how is he able to keep his identity a secret? In these movies, he doesn't carry himself any differently whether he's Clark or Superman. What makes his disguise believable in other material is that he acts so differently between his two alter egos that it's believable that people can't make the connection. Christopher Reeve pulled this off perfectly in his movies, and even All-Star Superman, where he tells Lois he's Clark, she can't believe it because of how different the two of them are. Clark is meek and gentle, while Superman is badass and confident. That's why the disguise works. Here though, there are barely any distinguishing factors, which makes it far less believable. Clark goes around an apartment building, and one of the tenants tells Clark that Batman has a whole lot of meaning in him, while Bruce is in this underground fight club where nobody identifies him as Bruce Wayne or questions why he's there, so that way he could get close enough to KGB's and hack his phone. Clark tries to ask Perry White to make the story of Batman's brutal methods public, but for whatever reason, Perry isn't interested in publishing that story, and is instead more focused on the recent football game from earlier. Lois comes in to bring up the bullet she got, and the guys from the crime lab weren't able to identify the manufacturer, meaning their military prototype weapons are being handed to terrorists, but Perry isn't interested in that either. Perry White and other DC media has always been interested in exposing big stories to keep the Daily Planet on the map, especially when Superman first shows up, but here he has no interest in exposing government corruption or murderous vigilantes that are being protected by the police. Even if we're going to ignore the adaptation argument, any newspaper publisher worth their salt would jump at the opportunity to have two massive stories like this, but instead he chooses to work on your average run-of-the-mill story such as football, which nobody cares about and will be forgotten about in like a week. Lex meets with Elastigirl and he starts going about his daddy issues, claiming he keeps everything the same, hoping that his dad will come back. And his weird religious obsession with demons and angels makes him seem like this megalomaniac, which is barely expended upon at all. He asks Elastigirl if he could call her June, and she replies,
Can I call you June?
You can call me whatever you like. Take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea.
Keep that in mind. Overall, this scene is pointless. It doesn't further plot or characters, and it would easily be cut out, and nothing of consequence would be lost. Bruce has a dream sequence where he visits his parents' grave, but is attacked by this bat made of bad CGI, but he wakes up. He's sleeping next to this woman who never shows up again, so she's also pointless. Bruce explains to Alfred about communications he's intercepted from the Russians about the White Portuguese, and the data was transmitted from the residence of none other than Lex Luthor, and turns out he's invited to Lex's party. We get a glimpse of the Batsuit, which is the same as the Dark Knight Returns suit with a black cape and cowl from the second half of that story, which looks pretty cool live action, not gonna lie. It's not my favorite Batsuit, that goes from Pattinson's suit, but it's pretty good. But when Bruce walks by, it shows Robin's suit, which has Joker graffiti on it, meaning that Robin is dead. Yep, Robin's already dead, and we haven't had a second of screen time with him. More on that later. But I would like to bring up why Robin's suit does not have any thigh protection. Considering that we see Bruce's suit has good resistance from both guns and knives, he has protection throughout his whole body. Well, I think you could give that to Robin. Meaning that if he was shot or stabbed there, he'll be unable to fight well. I know some might say it's based on older designs of Robin, which are pretty much the same, but the difference is that those designs were before the more modern suits, which have bullet protection, since they're pretty much armor as opposed to back then where superhero suits were nothing more than spandex that offered no protection. So that's a pretty big difference. We get a shower scene where we see Bruce butt naked. That was in the Ultimate Edition, so people paid extra for that. Thank you, Zack Snyder, for giving us what we always wanted. Bruce tries there for some reason despite living in a city that's just across the lake. Clark doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is. Makes complete sense. Lex starts to give off this terrible speech on gods and all of that, while Bruce heads to the server room to place a hacking device on it. But it'll take a few minutes, so Bruce has to wait. Mercy Graves asks Bruce what he's doing there, and Bruce puts on this Playboy ad, claiming he's had too much to drink and he thought that was the bathroom. While I do like Affleck's performance here, it's a dumb story since he's only been there for like 2 minutes, so no one will believe that. And why does this room have no security outside Mercy watching over it? Like no cameras or locks. Lex's speech carries on and is excruciating to listen to. Bruce and Clark have this stilted conversation about Superman and Batman. They both come across as hypocritical since they both criticize each other for being above the law and being brutal vigilantes, even though that's what they both are, and not once throughout the entire movie does anyone call them out on this. Lex shows up and somehow he knows the name of Clark Kent, even though he's just a freelance small-time journalist, but never comes across as suspicious for either of the two heroes. Bruce heads back to the server room only to find the hacking device is gone. This woman in the red dress looks at him suspiciously, and Bruce tries to follow her, but she gets in her car and leaves. Superman saves the girl from a burning building during the Day of the Dead celebration. In the media, they discuss how 90% of the world believes in some higher power and some sort of messianic figure, and how controversial Superman is, while he's saving people and doing good. My criticism against Man of Steel also apply here on the whole Superman being Jesus thing, which I and many others hate. There's the laughably obvious imagery, and that's more cringeworthy than anything else, and that's coming from a guy who's Christian, by the way.
shoehorn biblical crap in here is annoying. And we're both Christian. We're both Christian and we hate this.
Plus, Superman wasn't made with the intent of being a metaphor for Jesus. He was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, both of whom were Jewish and don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Before I get anyone putting words in my mouth, I'm not saying that Superman himself is Jewish, but he wasn't made with Christian intent. That didn't even really start until the 1978 Superman movie, as well as some small references to Christ here and there. I've seen people compare Clark's Journey's movies to Jesus, claiming he's this godlike being, struggle to fit in a world of humans that don't understand him. That is a complete misunderstanding of Superman, even some very high-profile movies spread this misconception. Clark Kent was not Superman's secret identity. He was Clark Kent before he was Superman. He grew up on a farm in Kansas. He was raised by humans and taught good human values. He cares about humanity regardless of what they think about him. Basically, Superman's main arc in this movie is whether or not to help humanity due to their hatred of him, or whether or not he should be a hero because of how much good he does, humanity would still find a way to hate him. This is said multiple times in both this movie and from Snyder himself. This might work for, let's say, Homelander, because from what I've heard, that's what his arc is, but this is Superman. He doesn't save humans because it makes him more popular, rather he loves them, and they're his people. That's why Man of Steel, when he says this,
I found him.
Who?
My parents. My people.
It irritates me because here he doesn't think of the Kents as his parents or humanity as his people, even though he grew up with them. And the fact that he's hesitating to do the right thing because there's still people who don't like him makes him come across as selfish, and it ultimately betrays what Superman is about. In the DCAU, even when he becomes controversial due to his invasion of Earth because of Darkseid's brainwashing, he doesn't just give up and try to abandon them, but instead he does what he can, and in Justice League, he rebuilds his relationship to humanity, and it works. Because that's what Superman would do. In here, he's just told by Martha Kent in a later scene that he can just walk away from this and that humanity doesn't owe him anything. Martha Kent will never say this, but she and Tom teach him that he can use his powers or he can hide them, but either way, he's going to face consequences for them. They don't condone him for doing what he wants, which is to do the right thing, because that's what they taught him to do. But Snyder's movies actually teach him to not use his powers to save the lives of innocent children, and that he could just walk away from doing the right thing. And that's just one of the many examples of these movies that show that Snyder doesn't understand Superman, and we've got more to discuss on that later. To conclude this tangent, Superman is not Jesus. Never was, never intended to be, and it doesn't fit his character. Lois pokes more into investigating the bullet, and Clark looks into Batman and his bat brandings and how he's been doing it to multiple criminals, while the trafficker from earlier is getting dragged into jail knowing what awaits for him being branded. The wheelchair guy is released from jail, and inside this place, Lex is waiting for him with his high-tech wheelchair. The wheelchair guy shows up to Elastigirl, claiming Superman is responsible for making him half a man, and that his wife walked out on him. Emphasis on walk. And that he even can't take a piss standing up. Considering this is a woman he's talking to, he probably should have chosen a better argument. The trafficker is then shown to be killed in prison, orchestrated by KGBs. More on that later. Lois talks to Martian Manhunter, General Swanwick, about Superman and his innocence. Perry's still way too fixated on the football game instead of an actual story that could place his business on the map. In another party scene, Bruce meets with Diana Prince, the woman from earlier, about the stolen drive. She asks if it's stealing from a thief. Yes, it is. That should go without saying. This movie has fantastic dialogue. She tells him that she placed the drive back in the glove compartment in his car. And, oh god, this scene. To put it simply, this scene is an utter disaster. So Batman, wearing a pair of goggles and a trench coat, heads outside to his Fallout apocalyptic hellhole desert with mushroom clouds everywhere, which is not how that works, by the way, but okay. He sees the Omega symbol carved onto the ground. He heads back to his base filled with Mad Max rejects. He heads inside a truck to get what he thinks is a shipment of kryptonite, but turns out to be a trap. The guy inside points a gun at him, claiming he's sorry. Then a bunch of guys who look like the Umbrella Troopers from the Resident Evil movies reveal themselves and start killing everyone. Batman retaliates by fighting back. If you notice, the Umbrella Troops keep charging at him, closing the distance, instead of just shooting him. Some might argue that they're trying to take him alive, but if that's the case, why not just shoot one of his arms or legs to try and injure him and make it hard for him to fight? Anyway, Batman gets overwhelmed and knocked out by a parademon. Batman wakes up in chains while other prisoners around him, where Superman shows up and kills the other guys. He tells Bruce that he took her away from him and starts to rip out his heart Temple of Doom style. Bruce wakes up and Flash shows up out of nowhere, claiming Bruce was right about Superman, that Lois Lane is the key, but he realizes that he was too soon and he disappears, with Bruce waking up again, apparently having a dream within a dream. What the hell just happened? All of a sudden, we're just hit with several pieces of sequel setup and stuff that's never explained. Just imagine being a casual audience member watching this movie in theaters, having no knowledge of DC outside of some other movies, and how confused you would be. You know, Mega Symbol, Parademons, Superman being evil, and having humans who serve him, the Flash just showing up with time travel. If you are familiar with stuff such as Injustice or the Flashpoint storyline, this is just a tsunami of random things in just a couple of minutes. And this is never elaborated on for the rest of the movie. Unless you're aware about the notes and drafts for the canceled Justice League sequels Snyder had planned, you're still not going to have any idea. This is one of the worst cases of blatant sequel setup I've ever seen, and this isn't even the only example. It's even worse with his lack of discretion later on. The drive is done with the encryption process, and Bruce looks up at the white Portuguese while Clark looks more into Batman's bat branding. Bruce discovers that the Portuguese is a ship and that it has kryptonite which is capable of killing Superman. Bruce makes his infamous speech that if Superman has a 1% chance of turning against us, we have to take it as an absolute certainty. Look, I get being concerned of a superpowered being that's capable of single-handedly destroying the entire planet, but if he as much as watched the news, you can clearly see that Superman is helping people and saving lives, and that he apparently has no evil intentions, especially since he literally killed the last of his own race in order to save Earth. And it's a common staple of Batman that he doesn't trust anybody, but he's not stupid. Batman is a guy who literally has contingencies to take down every member of the Justice League in case of any of them turn against him for whatever reason, even himself. He carries kryptonite with him in a lead case with him to prepare for any Superman emergencies. And what if more Kryptonians with malicious intentions like Zod show up or any other extraterrestrial threat? You know, like what happens in the next movie, requiring them to resurrect Superman just to stop Steppenwolf? By killing Superman, you're only making the world much more vulnerable, which would be stupid. But Batfleck, being the overly paranoid idiot that he is, decides to go through with murdering Superman. Never once has he questioned why Lex has the kryptonite, what his plans are for it. For all he knows, he could be trying to kill Superman himself to take over the world or something like that, but he never questions what Lex's intentions are. Meaning that he could be playing right into Lex's plan, which it turns out he does. World's greatest detective, everyone. He's been at this for 20 years, but yet he's this idiot that has no semblance of critical thinking. Clark looks into Santos' murder, and he finds his girlfriend and their son as he's crying about losing his dad, and she goes off on how Batman is the judge and that the guards in the prison don't care. I'm gonna go more into this in a second because what happens next is undeniable proof that Batman has been character assassinated in this movie. At the docks, the criminals load this shipment into a truck and Batman shoots it with a tracker. So does he just wait for them to leave and get to their destination? Nope, he gets his Batmobile, which immediately looks pretty cool, starts chasing them. But what is the point of all this? Just let them leave and use the tracker to follow them discreetly. Now, Zack Snyder has said he doesn't consider Batman killing in this segment. Yeah, I guess he's right. Yeah, no. Batman in this scene is outright murdering people, and this isn't how it's like in some of the other Batman movies, where it's very clearly unavoidable or very clearly not going out of his way to kill anyone, and it's not confirmed that there are casualties. This here is blatant and outright murder. So in this film, Batman is branding dozens of criminals to be sentenced to death while in prison, going out of his way to kill. This is an utter betrayal of Batman's character. Zack also claimed that this movie takes inspiration from The Dark Knight Returns, claiming Batman killed in that story. This is false. Batman does not kill there. Some point to him killing that mutant gang member, but that's more of an issue of sloppy art rather than a writing decision. Because in the animated movie, he shoots her in the hand and knocks her out with the stock of the gun. And if he did kill there, the police would try to arrest him then, but they don't try to arrest him for murder until after he supposedly killed Joker but didn't. He came close, but Joker finished the job himself. Back to BVS, Batman's actions are widowing women and orphaning children, as you see with that scene from Clark I decided to hold off until now. The kid is crying because he lost his father. Now I know what some of you are going to try to say, that he was a bad person and a predator and a sex trafficker, so thus he deserved it, as well as all the other criminals that Batman kills. I do agree that he's all those things, that he deserves to be put in prison and serve for his crimes. You're not going to hear anything else from me, but you're projecting your own morality into Batman. Characters in media are not to be used to project morality or logically thinking about what a character should or shouldn't do. They have their own beliefs, and as long as they are consistent and make sense for them to have said beliefs is what truly matters. Batfleck is never stated to believe that the criminals deserve what they got for their crimes. In fact, it's never stated why he started killing. I've heard two reasons. A, the death of Robin, and B, the Battle of Metropolis. It has to be the second one because in the DCEU wiki, Robin, who's confirmed to be Dick Grayson, was killed in 2000, 15 years for the current events of this movie. Now apparently the Battle of Metropolis is what sent Bruce down the spiral to start his brutal method of vigilantism. If that's the case, what's the point of killing Robin if it has no impact on Bruce as a character or his motivations? If you were to cut the second we see Robin's suit, it will make no impact at all for the plot or any of the characters, which isn't a good thing. This makes his off-screen demise pointless and a blatant FU to the fans and Batman and his mythos. You don't need multiple reasons that have nothing to do with each other to send Bruce down his dark spiral. Just keep one and expand on that. Don't give us multiple paper-thin reasons and never elaborate and just expect the audience to guess the reason why. If it's to show that this Batman is tortured, you don't need Robin to die for him to be tortured. Live-action DC has given Robin a bad name, especially to casual audiences. There's the whiny, annoying Robin from the Joel Schumacher movies, the non-Robin in The Dark Knight Rises, and a Robin who's dead before we meet him. If we were to go with the idea that Robin's death is the reason why Batman is the way he is here, that's still not an excuse. Batman is a character who's faced death and hardships his whole life. He lost his parents, his adopted son, Barbara was shot and paralyzed, but Batman always preserves and follows his beliefs. So what makes him such a hero in the first place? He's incorruptible, he's willful to the point of being stubborn, and he sticks to his moral principles. And putting his principles to the test as a whole is how we get stories such as The Dark Knight Returns, Under the Red Hood. He's afraid that if he crosses the line, that'll mean he'll never be able to come back. Some say that this movie is a cautionary tale why Batman shouldn't kill, and Snyder has had things to say about that as well. You know what I'm talking about.
Someone says to me like, oh, like Batman killed a guy. I'm like, fuck. Really? I'm like, wake the fuck up!
Sorry, but just because a character has a moral code against killing, that isn't unrealistic, nor is that weakness. People in the real world have their own morals against killing and murder, whether for religious or simply ethical motives. People claim it's more realistic for heroes to kill in real life, such as what the cops and militaries do, but first off, cops are trained to avoid violence first, which is the reason why they have stun guns, pepper spray, and other non-lethal types of weapons. And both the cops and the military only kill when they believe they have to in order to save someone else's life, and there's nothing else they could do about it. And killing people as a hero is not realistic because you will still be an enemy of the police, especially if you can't justify the act as self-defense, which is the same case as it is in real life. Now there's the point that Batman should kill to prevent death later on down the line if the criminals escape from jail. My counter argues that he shouldn't because he's not a judge, jury, and executioner. The Joker not being executed or escaping Arkham is not Batman's fault. It's on the system of the government itself. Batman ultimately has nothing keeping him in check other than the law. He has no one in government who keeps him accountable, and it's not for a simple man like himself to decide who lives and dies. It also goes against his motivations as Batman to save lives. Since it all started with Batman wanting to make sure that what happened to him never happens to anyone else. He'll be becoming Joe Chill by orphaning kids by killing their parents, which is exactly what he's doing as we just saw. That kid is going to view him as his Joe Chill, as a maniac who thinks he's above the law, which goes against the main pillar he stands on. Now Batman is a character who, despite coming across as brooding and cold, is compassionate. While this might sound pretentious to say, Batman has a heart. He shows empathy for kids, especially those who go through hardships just as bad as him. That's why he takes in Dick Grayson after losing his family. That's why he comforts Ace as she's dying, and why he doesn't kill her in order to stop her from killing an entire city. And I might have some dude who's like,
this is a different version of Batman than the ones we've had before. Stop comparing this version to other versions of Batman.
This is nothing more than coping.
Cope! What? Yeah, that's right, cope! What in tarnation does that even— Cope, seethe, maw—
You can't deal with the fact that people are criticizing your favorite versions of these characters, so you have to disregard all of these moments to not have to admit that Snyder bastardized them. These moments are why these characters are beloved by so many people, because they're character establishing. Without them, we have no idea or reason to latch onto them. That's why people use this moment in Return of the Jedi to criticize this moment in The Last Jedi. Hope we're clear on that. Anyway, after that long tangent, let's get back to the plot. Batman simply ramps into the truck, and before he can capture him, Superman stops him instead of the criminals that can potentially hurt people, since they have guns and an RPG. He tells Batman to give up, and that the bat is dead. Bury it. Essentially threatening him, which is definitely a Superman thing to do, and Batman asks this quotable meme.
Do you bleed?
Huh?
Then Superman flies off. The truck arrives at LexCorp, and we see that the tracker Bruce placed on it was almost destroyed by him ramming into it. Meaning that if he did destroy it, it would mean he had no idea where it is at all. Lois gives the bullet to the journal to have it examined. Then there's the Martha and Clark scene that I already talked about earlier, so no use going over that again. Kanye heads back to Elastigirl's office to tell her the truth. Lois and Swanwick meet up again, and he tells her that the CIA believed that someone wanted to make Superman look guilty, and that the bullets were manufactured by LexCorp.
So get your face ready.
Wait, what? So Lex, being the genius that he is, decides to give his own men bullets that can be traced back to his own company and potentially be indicted as being responsible for the massacre.
That makes sense to me.
And if the CIA are fully aware that Lex is the one that's responsible, why not disclose that Superman's not the one that's responsible? They have footage of what happened, as well as weapons that basically has the culprit's name written on it. The Journal claims it's classified, but why? It doesn't make the government or the CIA look bad, it just makes Lex Luthor look bad. Some might say that Lex must have bought them off, or that the government wants Superman out of the way. First of all, it's never established that either of these are the case, so that's just nothing more than headcanon. And secondly, Superman saved the planet in the last movie, so much like Batman, why did they decide to get rid of him instead of taking precautions in case he turns bad? And lastly, if the latter was true, why just let Lex get away with this instead of at least trying to get the masses to be suspicious of him, which could lead to his stocks collapsing since no one would want to buy from a guy who's likely committed murder and a conspiracy against the government. So this whole plotline relies on everyone being so stupid and unwilling to use their critical thinking for 2 seconds, and ultimately breaks this plotline, and the whole following scene should never happen. Keith heads inside with his wheelchair, which wouldn't happen because during congressional hearings, you're not allowed to bring in your wheelchair. They give you a temporary one instead. Well, Snyder is showing he doesn't understand how the banking system IRS works, and black holes, as I mentioned earlier, so he's just being consistently stupid. And it's compounded by the fact that Bruce asked one of his employees why Keith hasn't been getting their checks, and turns out he hasn't been getting them, and somehow Lex managed to intercept all of them. How would the accounting department not know that Keith's not getting the checks? Couldn't he just call or email them asking why he hasn't been receiving them? Bruce is told that Keith's returning them, but why has he never been informed of this before now? And if Lex has been stealing the checks long enough to where Keith is no longer financially stable, how long has he been planning this? It's only been a year and a half after Man of Steel, so has he been planning this since the ending of that movie? As he hates Superman to the point he's been wanting to kill him ever since he first showed up publicly. Now I'm certainly talking about Lex's motivations as to why he hates Superman later on. Kanye is killed after being pushed by KGBs into a subway train. Somehow no one sees him do it, and she happens to be stupidly standing right next to the edge of the platform to where she can be pushed. Superman shows up outside with Lois watching right next to iDubbbz.
Put a sock in it. No one cares.
Lex approaches Elastigirl. He tells her the oldest American lie is that power can be innocent, which I have never heard in my life, and honestly sounds really stupid. Superman approaches the council, and Elastigirl brings her speech, but she notices something. A jar. She turns it and has a label saying, Granny's Peach Tea. Remember that line from earlier? Yes. Lex took a jar, peed in it, and sat it on the counter. I'm sorry, that's some of the dumbest crap I've heard in my entire freaking life. So somehow Lex managed to put this here without anybody noticing, even though it would smell pretty bad. And Elastigirl looks at a vacant chair, and Lex is not there, and this happens. Yeah, that just happened. Somehow Superman couldn't see or hear the bomb in the wheelchair.
But Skids, they mentioned later on that it's made out of lead, so he couldn't see through it.
Okay, but he should still be able to hear it. He heard Lois earlier to save her in Africa, and she didn't even specifically call out to him. That happens later on again. And don't forget, Lex still has the kryptonite. If we were able to believe that Lex is somehow able to make a bomb that Superman can't see or hear through, he should have used the kryptonite right then and there to kill Superman, since that's what he wants. But so he wasted the golden opportunity to kill them. Smartest man alive, guys. And why did Lex let Mercy Graves die? So far from what little we've seen her, she's been very loyal service important to him, but yet he just kills her off? Did she know about the bomb, just decide to stay there for the sake of covering their act? That's stupid because when the Senator realizes Lex wasn't there, she was killed so no one would know. She just adds another character list that Snyder's killed off. So far he's killed off Jonathan Kent, Emil Hamilton, Dick Grayson, Jimmy Olsen, and Mercy Graves. He's killed off so many beloved side characters in what's supposed to be a shared universe. There is more to DC than just the heroes and the villains. Side characters also help bring the universe to life and make it more of a believable place, and even the side characters can be beloved in their own way. The MCU, for example, has many well-liked side characters, to where when they announce that they're not going to be in a follow-up show, people aren't too happy about that. But Snyder seems to have a vendetta against any of the side characters, especially Superman's, and for those that aren't killed off, they're just props that barely have any character or lack the traits that they have had before, which make them unrecognizable. As bad as Snyder is writing the main characters, he's equally as bad writing the secondary ones, which just contributes to his universe being so lifeless and boring as a result. Outside maybe Pete Ross from Man of Steel, as I said before in that video, but here Snyder apparently has such a limited view on what DC is, he just simply doesn't care about anybody that isn't the $100 million action figures that just do cool stuff and blow things up. He's the definition of style over substance. Let's take a look at Superman's reaction here. He just looks around and has no expression outside mild disappointment. I've seen people say Henry Cavill is a terrible actor because of this movie, but I don't agree with that. Fun fact, at the end of Man of Steel, Superman's scream was just improv from Henry Cavill that even wasn't supposed to be there. That was just Cavill just acting on the spot. If it weren't for him, that wouldn't be there. It would just have Superman just emotionlessly killed the last member of his race with no impact whatsoever. He also wanted a sequel that explores his trauma from killing Zod, but yet that never happens. Which is a damn shame because it now means that Zod's death has no impact on Superman as a character. It just happens, the next thing is just him making jokes that he's as American as he can get. That one lady talking about how hot he is. That's another issue I have with the heroes killing so much this universe. If they were going to go down that route, they should have taken the time to explore what it means for heroes to kill and how it impacts them, but yet they never do. Which is another reason I take issue with the defense that this film is a cautionary story on Batman killing, because it never explores how he feels about killing and how his life has led him to that moment, or why he hasn't killed Joker yet for killing Robin. That's been a plot hole people have been pointing out for years now. He just murders everybody, no hesitation or guilt whatsoever, yet people try calling this deep. But yet, the films don't do anything to explore or give us anything substantive to take away from it. Snyder just does this because he thinks it's cool, and it's under disguise of this deep, meaningful movie by having characters bring up a theme for 10 seconds, but don't do anything beyond that. Just like how in The Last Jedi they bring up certain themes and concepts, only to abandon them right after for more dumb, mindless action. I think that Henry Cavill was the perfect choice to play as Superman, but yet the material is given so garbage that he's really able to be given the chance to be the actual character. No wonder he prefers Justice League, because that's pretty much the only movie where he's been given a chance to be Superman that we like. He's much warmer than Snyder's, makes jokes and cheesy one-liners that Superman would say. He's caring, actually saves more people that aren't just Lois. And more importantly, the movie remembers that he's human. He's not a god or some Jesus metaphor outside having powers. He's just a guy that wants to be human and protects them because he cares about them. Look, I'm not saying Justice League is good. It's got a crap ton of problems, but for all it gets wrong, it undoubtedly got Superman's characterization right. Unlike here, he only helps one person, doesn't try using any of his powers to put out the fires, especially since we know that he has the frost breath from both Justice Leagues, and he just flies away. Not only making him look more guilty in the eyes of the people, but it also makes him a coward for running away from his problems.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
What a pizza time hero. Alright, the script is getting long, and we're only halfway through. So I'm just going to speed things up and go more in depth on stuff that really matters. After seeing this, Bruce reaches his breaking point. This is it. Now is the time to get ready to kill Superman. Now I finally get to say something I wanted to discuss for a little bit now. But why is Lex so fixated on using Batman to kill Superman? The movie never explains why he wants him specifically, when he has so many other easier and less risky options which are perfectly viable. We know because of the other DCEU movies that there are several assassins that Lex can hire, so why not just anonymously reach out to them, offer them like $100 million or something like that, and give them some kryptonite as the means to kill Superman. That's all you have to do. Hell, why not just use KGB to snipe him while he's making out with Lois, or just send a bomb to his place if you're going with the idea that Superman can't see or hear it. But instead, he goes to the far less reliable route to take, and it's stupid. In fact, Lex's plan is so convoluted and relies on so many factors that out of his control to work, but somehow everything goes perfectly for him. Don't criticize Palpatine's plan from the prequels if you think this is okay, because this plan is the entire driving force for this movie's entire plot, but it makes no sense. It relies on everybody being stupid idiots. Superman sometimes uses his powers to save Lois, but sometimes relies on him not using his power to save people, such as Martha, which we're certainly going to get to, by the way. No one investigating him, such as the government or Batman, the world's greatest detective who's 20 years into the job, and him having information he possibly couldn't know about, such as knowing both of the heroes' identities, which is never explained, that Lois was going to Africa to interview the general, that Jimmy was a CIA agent, and so much more. Just nothing about this makes sense, and it's a major contributing reason why Lex is just a horrible villain in this movie, and that's not even bringing in his motivation. Batman breaks into Lex Corp to steal the kryptonite to make preparations for his assassination, playing right into Lex's plans since he's so stupid he can't see that he's very obviously being emotionally manipulated to doing this. At Lois' hotel room, Clark is brooding on how he's lived his life his way his father saw it, even though his father advocated for children to die, and Clark was still openly use his powers to save others, but details. He's down in his mission because people are mad at him for blowing up the building, even though that's really stupid and no one should be believing that, and it's very obviously the guy who brought in a specialized wheelchair that they didn't even bother to expect, or just give him one of their own wheelchairs. Lex uses Zod's fingerprints to get deeper inside the ship. I'm not sure how that is possible, why the ship is able to recognize them. Is it because it's Kryptonian? That's pretty weak, like, why would having the ship require DNA testing or any other security system besides this one? The plot would just stop at its tracks. Kinda strange on him, despite how big of a chunk the rock is, he only manages to make those things. And why a spear of all things? Why not just make a kryptonite blade or even brass knuckles, so that way you can punch him when he gets weaker every time you land a blow on him? A spear is a weapon meant for longer ranges. Using one at a very close range is suicide, which is why swords or knives work better for close encounters. Just now, Bruce decides to look into the metahuman files and sees pictures of Diana Prince. Don't worry. We're getting to that later. Believe me. Lex puts Zod's body into this weird pool of liquid. He slits his hand and pours blood on Zod's body. Not sure why you had to do that in the most painful way possible, but whatever. Couldn't he have just transfused some of his blood inside a blood bag beforehand and pour it when it's ready? The ship's AI claims that it's outlawed by Kryptonian Council to make deformities. Lex points out that the Council is gone, and that's literally all it takes for a ship to agree with him. Why would this AI be programmed to have the ability to do this when it's illegal? Shouldn't it want to respect and obey its creators even when they're dead? Seems like the programmers at Krypton didn't have a lot of foresight when making this. The people of Earth hate Superman now since everyone's so stupid in this universe. A very obvious framing is all it takes to convince them that Superman is the enemy. I know some people do believe in very stupid, obvious lies and theories and all that. Not this many people. This movie makes it seem as though almost everybody has turned against Superman, even though all the good things he's done. And they also know that Keith was the bomber, but they still think Superman was implicit in it, even though Keith was very clear and vocal that he hates Superman, and wanted to sue him like that one guy from Incredibles for causing him to lose his legs. Clark is heading to a mountain to his self-imposed exile, as Lex is staring at the sunset, which looks like that one picture of Napoleon. Isn't this movie just so artistic and deep, guys? Granted, there are plenty of people that consume this crap, so I guess I shouldn't be sarcastic here. Lois heads inside Keith's house, where the police have just finished investigating, which should reveal that he wasn't conspiring with Superman, but they're not smart enough to figure that out, even though just having a casual glance at his house should tell them everything. When Lois is asked to leave, she looks at Keith's fridge and sees that it's full of food. She comes to the immediate conclusion that he couldn't have been a bomber since he thought he wasn't going to die. Why? Why would that be your first and only guess? For all you know, he could have been depressed to the point he wasn't eating and all the food just piled up. Or because of his depression, he could have just been spending a lot of money. Or he bought the food before he decided to blow himself up, so that's why he stopped eating. This just is so flimsy, but yet Lois is treated as though she's right when she can't know for sure. Lois talks to her friend, and apparently the wheelchair is made out of the same material as the bullets. Come on, movie. Lex was stupid enough to leave evidence at the massacre scene from earlier, but now you're telling us he's stupid enough to leave more evidence that can link him to all this? If any investigators managed to find this out, as well as Lex conveniently not being at the building when he was supposed to be there at the time of the hearing, that should set up some pretty big red flags. But expecting any detectives, even the world's greatest, to have an inkling of intelligence or common sense is beyond this movie at this point. Back in the Himalayas, or wherever these mountains are, Clark starts having the visions of Jonathan Kent. It's never explained how or why he's able to have these visions, or if what Jonathan is saying is true, so everything here should be taken with a grain of salt, like that stupid Han and Kylo scene at the end of The Rise of Skywalker. And I know the internet has already pointed out this multiple times in the past, but the line delivery from John is completely different here, as opposed to how it was in Man of Steel. This just indicates how hard this movie tries to make everything way more serious than what it needs to be. John tells some story to Clark about how Martha gave him hope in humanity, and it's an obvious parallel to Clark and Lois' relationship, and nothing real important of whether plot or character happens here. Bruce heads to the burnt ruins of Wayne Manor, and it's never explained what happened here, or why he has to try to rebuild it for all this time. He has to do that until the end of both versions of Justice League, where it implies that was going to happen. Alfred tries talking Bruce out of going through all this, but Bruce goes on to say it might be the only thing he's ever done that will amount to anything, and despite all the crime fighting he's done for 20 years, you pull one weed out, another one grows to his place. Which goes against what he stands for, because the whole point of his crusade against crime isn't to permanently end it, that's impossible, or rather so no one else has to go through what he did, but I've already been through that. Martha at the diner where she works goes outside to take out some garbage, while a car rests up and heads towards her, and instead of going back inside where there are other people, she moronically runs away to the parking lot, and another van shows up and snatches her. While this is happening, Batman is geared up. He's wearing his Dark Knight Returns mech suit, and has his bat signal switched on and he's ready to kill. Aren't you just so excited, guys? He's wearing a suit. Zack Snyder's Red Frank Miller. Meanwhile, Lois is captured, making her entire plotline completely pointless, because she's not captured because of her investigation, rather because Lex already knows she's Clark's sex doll, which is all her character is in these movies, other than just being a convenient plot device to contrive the plot further, or just to spout exposition. There's some back and forth between him and her, and instead of pushing him off the building, she just stands there. I know some might argue she need probable cause to justify her killing Lex, but she has evidence that he was involved in both scenes of mass killing, considering his private alloy that isn't available for average civilian use was at both scenes. Both by Keith, who was provided a LexCorp chair, and KG Beast and his guys using those bullets. Plus, she was kidnapped, so she could argue that Lex took her because of her looking into his criminal activities, and when he kidnapped her, she killed him to defend herself. It's not what happened, as I explained a second ago, but she can at least try to argue that, which would at least stop Lex killing more people and make the audience much happier that this jackass isn't going to be in more movies. Lex pushes her off instead, and in a matter of seconds, Clark moves in to save her. Keep this in mind because it's going to be crucial in a minute. They make out again, since that's all the romance ever amounts to. Superman flies to Lex, threatening him, which is totally what Superman would say. Great job, Zach. Lex outs Superman as being Clark Kent. How does he know this? And how does he know Bruce Wayne's Batman? It's never explained. It's even worse in the case of Batman, since he's been around for 20 years, and even Deathstroke, who's implied to be Batman's nemesis in this universe, doesn't even know that until Lex tells him at the end of Justice League, which really begs this question that is never elaborated on. Okay, guys. What comes next is very important. Let me play the whole thing, then I'll explain it.
Why do we have problems up here? The problem of evil in the world. The problem of absolute virtue.
I'll take you in without breaking you, which is more than you deserve.
The problem of you on top of everything else. You above all. Because that's what God is. Horus, Apollo, Hova, Kal-El, Clark, Joseph, Kent. See, what we call God depends upon our tribe, Clark Joe. Because God is tribal. God takes sides. No man in the sky intervened when I was a boy to deliver me from Daddy's fist and abominations. I figured out way back. God is all powerful. He cannot be all good. And if he is all good, then he cannot be all powerful. And neither can you be. They need to see the fraud you are. With their eyes. The blood on your hands.
What have you done?
And tonight, they will. Yes. Because you, my friend, have a date. Across the bay. Ripe fruit his hate. 2 years growing, but it did not take much to push him over, actually. Little red notes. Big bang. You let your family die! And now, you will fly to him. And you will battle him. To the death. Black and blue. Fight night. The greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. God versus man. Day versus night. Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
You think I'll fight him for you?
Yes, I do. I think you will fight for that special lady in your life.
She's safe on the ground. How about you?
Close, but I am not talking about Lois. No, every boy's special lady is his mother. Martha. The mother of a flying demon must be a witch. The punishment for witches, what is that? That's right, death by fire.
Mercy!
I don't know! I would not let them tell me! Now, if you kill me, Martha dies. And if you fly away, Martha also dies. But if you kill the bat, Martha lives. There we go. And now God bends to my will. cameras are waiting at your ship for the world to see the holes in the holy. Yes, the Almighty comes clean about how dirty he is, but
So, for whatever reason, Lex thinks Superman is God, or at least a god, and he blames God for his dad abusing and beating him as a kid, so that's why he hates Superman. So literally his motivation for its entire plot is because he's a Reddit atheist with daddy issues. That's it. That is single-handedly the dumbest villain motivation I have ever heard in my entire life. So this universe's beginning is contingent on this factor, because without this, the rest of the Snyderverse or mainline DCEU never happens. And yet deranged schizo Snyderoids would come out of their moldy basements to defend these movies, claiming they're deep, complex character studies that expands the characters and elevates them to heights we've never seen before, and this is their example. If you unironically think that, you need to watch more movies, or just experience more media in general. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. And yet it's not even the dumbest thing in this movie. No, no, no. And to think, this entire dynamic between one of the most iconic heroes of all time and his arch nemesis, one of which hates the other for petty, nonsensical reasons, and the other pretty much has no interaction with the other at all. And from what I've heard behind the scenes is that Lex from this movie is based on a version from Superman Birthright. This just shows a big misunderstanding you have of Lex's character and the comic. In that story, Lex has had a troubled upbringing from his parents, and his wealth status caused several social anxiety issues, amongst other things. He wasn't a social outcast simply because he was too smart for the world. That was when he was a teenager. In the present day of the comic, he's just like the proper Lex Luthor we know, just with the backstory from his childhood, just giving us more insight to how he turned out the way he did. So they basically took teen Lex, Flanderized him, and had him act like he's storing 10 pounds of coke before every scene. The only thing accurate about him from Birthright is his hair, and that's it. The whole dichotomy with these two characters is that Superman is an alien with godlike powers who wants to be viewed as human, and the other is a human who wants to be perceived as a god. That's what gives them the great hero-villain dynamic like Batman and Joker. But here, it's pretty much nothing, just like everything else these movies take from the good DC material. Anyway, back to the shitty movie. Lex orders Superman bring him the head of the bat, or otherwise he's going to kill Martha in an hour. Lex boards his helicopter and leaves. At the warehouse where Martha is held hostage, it turns out 25 minutes have already passed.
Question.
Huh?
Do you have a watch?
No, why?
Do you know what a minute is?
How? Is it really taking Superman 25 minutes to get past the bay to get to Gotham when he has super speed? I know some might argue he spent 25 minutes looking for his mom, but if that's the case, how is he unable to find her? He literally saved Lois from immediate danger 5 minutes ago in just a matter of seconds, as well as saving her when she was in Africa. So he can use his super hearing to save Lois whenever she's in danger, but not his own mother. Wow. Lex's plan relies on Superman being able to save his girl twice, but also relies on Superman not being able to hear the bomb, or his mother screaming, or heartbeats. So Lex literally relies on Superman's powers being inconsistent in order to work, which is a terrible base for your plan just to hope everything works out for your favor, hoping to get lucky. But Lex just is. Every single time. Superman informs Lois what's going on while she is grabbing a taxi to the Daily Planet, claiming he's going to try to convince Batman to help him. Keep this in mind because it's going to be crucial for the upcoming scene. He leaves saying this.
No one stays good in this world.
This is totally something Superman would say. But what's next is one of the most shameless scenes in this entire movie. Diana is in her hotel room with an email from Bruce Wayne with the title Boys Share 2. She opens to see a picture of herself from World War I, with Bruce asking her who she is. She opens the other files on the metahumans. We see Ezra Miller kidnap a guy, Aquaman chilling out underwater, and Miles Dyson creating another Terminator. How on earth did Lex get any of this? Was he just scrolling through random convenience store footage until he found the Flash? How did he get what is very likely US researched confidential footage? How did he get a private recording of Silas Stone using the mother box to turn his son into Cyborg? And why does he have all this? None of this is explained either in this movie or Justice League. I've heard that Lex wants to kill these guys too, or maybe he might have plans to use them to kill Superman. But if that's the case, why would he choose Batman? You know, the one without powers, who stands the least likely chance to accomplish that task, especially if he doesn't have any kryptonite. This is one of the most shameless pieces of sequel setup I've ever seen. It could easily be cut out of a movie and nothing would change. It doesn't further the plot or characters in any meaningful way, and this is a straight up omission that they are rushing this universe to catch up with Marvel. I mean, only 2 movies after this, we already got Justice League, and when half of them haven't had their own movie to shine. This is pathetic. This is how this universe introduces the Justice League, everyone, through a stupid ass email. But up next is the moment we're all been waiting for. The titular fight scene, which is this whole movie's selling point. Batman versus Superman. So, is it any good?
No!
This whole fight scene is a complete disaster, choreographically and narratively. Superman lands in front of Bruce pleading with him, mentioning legs, but Bruce has no interest in that whatsoever. And what makes this worse is that Batman wastes the perfect opportunity to kill Superman. He lures him to a sonic emitter trap, and for several seconds, he's stuck. If Bruce was smart, he would have used his turrets he had set up to shoot kryptonite bullets and then Superman right then and there, like what Bloodsport tried doing in the Suicide Squad. But instead, he just stands there wasting time, allowing Superman to break free, turrets fire regular bullets at him, which do no damage of course, and Superman eye lasers them. Strategic genius, everyone. Superman also decides to be a moron. He walks straight up to Batman, only being inches away from his face, and pushes him, only inciting to fight more instead of just using his words like an actual adult. He keeps pushing him, even going through a building, and throws Bruce at the bat signal. And when Clark finally speaks, he utters the worst possible thing that he could have said in the situation.
Stay down! If I wanted it, you'd be dead already.
Why would you say that? That's just making it worse. Batman throws a smoke bomb instead of using his X-ray vision to see through smoke, or using his super hearing to track Batman while he's moving this very chunky robotic suit. He instead dashes straight into the smoke, allowing Bruce to shoot him with the kryptonite fort gas. Lucky that Superman just caught this instead of using his super speed to avoid it. So, does Bruce use this opportunity to kill him? Nope! He starts monologuing. He spews out this crap about fear, and when Superman tries to punch him, Batman claims he's not brave, but rather men are brave, and some bullshit like that. This starts allowing him to beat the crap out of Superman until he starts to recover from sucking kryptonite, which you would think would last longer than 1 minute, but I guess not. Superman throws Batman through a bunch of bathroom stalls, and just now Batman is reloading his grenade launcher. Superman charges at him, and Batman shoots him again, and despite being much weaker now when Clark landed, he manages to hit Bruce so hard he manages to break a part of his mask. The other thing about this fight I want to bring up is how one-sided it is. For the most part, Batman is the one who's doing the most damage. After he shoots Clark again, he spends the next several minutes beating his ass, with Clark being completely unable to retaliate. You can very clearly tell Snyder prefers Batman, and it really shows this movie, especially in this fight scene. Part of the problem could be that he isn't talented enough to make it believable that Batman could take on Superman in a way that isn't stacked in his favor. But compare this to the fight in the Dark Knight Returns anime movie. His mech suit is way stronger than what it is here, allowing them to have a toe-to-toe slug match between each other. It's much faster paced and fun to watch, since you don't know who is going to win the end. Well, assuming you haven't read the comic, that is. It's also better since they're not idiots who are too stupid to talk things out like rational adults. Especially Superman, who keeps giving Bruce chances to back down. The Iron Man vs. Captain America fight in Civil War was also much better than this for the same reasons. They use all their powers and abilities throughout the whole fight, and you never know who's going to win until the very end, and it's great. Speaking of Civil War, there's something else important here. Emotional investment. One of the reasons the fight in Civil War is so great is the investment we have in the two characters fighting. We've had multiple movies develop their arcs and relationship to each other. It's what makes it a tragedy. But here we have no reason to care about this fight. As I said in my videos on Man of Steel, Superman basically has no real arc in that movie. Something that I'm bringing up near the very end. And this is the first movie with this universe's Batman, and he's so poorly characterized that it's hard for me, and what I imagine many other people, to care about this fight. This isn't a brother or sister forced to fight each other, a mentor and student brought against each other, a son trying to save his father, or even a properly developed rivalry between well-realized characters. This whole fight scene is nothing more than two hypocritical dumbasses who hate each other for the exact same reasons, and Superman refusing to tell Bruce what is going on. And that is the main reason the literal title conflict of this movie is so broken. Not only is it pushed by the ridiculousness of Lex's plan, it also fails to give the characters a proper reason to hate or fight each other. This is honestly an embarrassing failure if the entire selling point of this movie is so bad you can't even care for it. Speeding up to fight, Batman throws Superman down a very high distance and somehow that doesn't shatter his spine, even though he's so weak a sink can hurt him. Batman drags him with his grappling hook and rips off dialogue from The Dark Knight Returns. He spins Superman around like a record and it looks so goofy it's hilarious. Then he picks up the spear. Yes, the entire plan revolves around the fact that he just so happens to land the exact place he needed to be so Superman could kill him. Very lucky Superman didn't throw him to another building or took him somewhere else with his super speed. Lois' helicopter lands and she exits the vehicle. And after this, we get what is single-handedly not only the dumbest scene in this entire movie, but was one of the dumbest scenes in recent blockbuster cinema. One of the dumbest scenes in comic book movie history, but it's also the absolute worst scene in this movie, which literally breaks everything this movie has built up to so far. And we all know what that scene is. So let's break this down piece by bloody piece. Batman tells Superman that he was never a god. He was never even a man. He grazes a bit of Superman's face with a spear and he's about to go for the kill. While having a hard time talking because Batman has his foot on his throat, Superman pleads this.
Kill Martha!
Batman is stunned by this, asking him why he said that name, and Superman repeats it again. This causes Batman to get these PTSD flashbacks to his mom getting killed at the beginning of the movie, as well as Thomas Wayne's last words to her, which is why he said Martha instead of trying to plead to his son to get to safety, causing Batman to yell like an emotional man-child demanding, "Why did you say that name?" Lois conveniently runs in, and somehow she knows what he said, and he informs Batman that Martha is his mom's name. Batman backs off. In a fit of rage, he throws the spear away. Yes, that's right. The entire reason he's abandoned his crusade to try to kill Superman is because both their moms have the same name. Oh my God. What an absolute catastrophe of a scene. To start off with what the internet has pointed out a billion times, why does Superman refer to his mom by her first name? If he expected Batman to save her, shouldn't he tell him her whole name to make it far easier to know who to rescue? Martha is too broad of a name to give out and expect him to find her. There are at least 500,000 Marthas in the United States alone. That's assuming that Batman doesn't know that Clark Kent is Superman's secret identity. But Superman knows Batman's identity, so the inference should be true. Only to go ahead and believe that Superman is smart enough to figure out Batman's identity, but Batman isn't. You mean to tell me that Batman didn't do any background checks on his enemy that he's determined to eliminate? That's dumb. If he did, he should know he was raised by the Kents, thus knowing his mom's name. Second of all, is Bruce such a man-child that whenever he hears the name of one of his parents, he gets paralyzed from these Vietnam War flashbacks of their deaths? That would be like if Spider-Man got into a breakdown whenever he hears the name Ben.
Wow! Pizza! Hey! Hey! Pizza time! Let's go! Hey! Alright!
Thirdly, why should he care about his mom? How does that relate to anything if only his fear that Superman could destroy the world if he decides to do that for whatever reason? How would having a mom change that? The worst dictators and people to exist in history all had mothers, so that shouldn't change anything. I've seen people say that Batman's arc in this movie is to learn how to be like himself again to stop killing, and that he's realizing that Superman is human just like everyone else. Okay, if he even cared about that at all, as I tipped out much earlier, he should be very much aware that the people he's killing are humans and that he's depriving families of them. So why does having a mother change that for him now? That makes no sense. Plus, after this, he just goes back to killing again, so the argument about his arc not being about killing is very conflicted throughout this whole movie and the other movies afterwards, but we're saving that for his scene with Lex. This horrendously written scene is the catalyst for the rest of the entire movie, and it is so contrived and nonsensical, it honestly almost breaks the entire movie single-handed. And I think that Ben Affleck deserves an Oscar for delivering a well-acted scene like this without laughing like he's on Anastasia gas. Because this is how I feel like watching this scene. Because it is so funny, especially with all the memes that have spawned for it from the past several years.
Not alien. He has Bobby named Martha.
Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?
Why did you say a super common name?
Oh my god. Okay, we're almost done here, so let's do some more skimming. The spaceship is going nuts, while KG Beast is preparing to roast Martha with his flamethrower, which is kind of overkill, but okay. Batman and Superman are buddies now, and they start working together, with Superman going to the ship to stop Lex, and Batman volunteering to save Martha.
Martha won't die tonight.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
Dude, stop saying it like that. It's creepy. Superman flies out, and somehow, in a matter of seconds, Alfred is able to track Martha at the warehouse by tracing the mercenaries' calls, which means Superman should be able to find her by himself, making the fight pointless, but I've been over that. After what feels like an eternity, I finally have another positive, which is more good lines from Alfred. And Batman flies in, killing a bunch of guys. So much for his character arc to stop killing, but whatever. With the outer defenses offline, Batman breaks inside the warehouse. What happened to Harsh this movie this entire time, I have a confession. What's next is easily the best scene in the entire movie, and that's because this fight scene is fantastic. The mercs have their guns sighted at the doors, waiting for Batman to come through until Batman, while having the high advantage, throws some bombs at the guns, knocking them out of the hands of the wielders, uses his grapple gun to hang a guy upside down, goes CQC on a guy, directing his gun away from him until everyone dodges, and uses an Arkham-style Batclaw takedown. This is what I wanted from the Superman fight, was for Batman to use his gadget and other resources to good use instead of a crappy use. Instead of using a stupid spear and using his grapple gun in the dumbest way possible, he uses all of his tools in practical ways, such as when he uses a Batarang to take a grunt down. There's this weird part when one guy displays his grenade at first instead of just pulling the pin quickly, but that's just one minor blemish on an otherwise awesome fight scene. Batman kicks the man he has hanging upside down towards the grenade thrower and knocks him back. He tries to grab it again, but it doesn't go well for him. Batman knocks some more goons out, uses his grapple to throw a crate, and enters this well-choreographed fight against 4 guys using knives, and the sound effects and mixing are so good here. A gunner tries shooting at point-blank range, but Batfleck's armor protects him in a smart move, and Goon pulls on his cape, which is a nice way to make the thugs seem at least somewhat competent. Batman then defeats the last of the thugs. Wow. What an awesome scene. This is the best fight scene in the movie, bar none. And this is the best fight scene in the DCEU. While it has a couple of flaws, if this amount of attention to detail and polish went towards everything else in this movie, especially the writing, I'll be writing cocktails all day long. But unfortunately, we get back to BVS being BVS. KG Beast and the other guy still have Martha hostage. Not sure why he's still alive at this point, with several minutes have passed since Batman has shown up, but whatever. Batman goes Kool-Aid Man through the wall and grabs the henchman in his gun, like in The Dark Knight Returns yet again. KG Beast threatens to kill Martha instead of just shooting him in the head, since he wouldn't be able to react to that unless if KG Beast is 5th dimensional or something. Batman instead shoots his tank and he shields Martha from the blast. And we get one of the 3 jokes in this movie.
It's okay. I'm a friend of your son's.
I figured. The cape?
And it is so tone deaf considering that these 2 guys are burning alive right now. So strange that Zack likes to keep these movies so dark. Whenever he tries to implement jokes, they're either really stupid and unfunny. Lois throws the spear into the water. Keep that in mind because it'll be important later. Clark arrives at the ship where he has his last conversation with Lex's universe. Lex calls to see him Martha is dead, and Batman makes an admittedly good comeback, but this is immediately followed up on with even more bad dialogue, and Lex presents the ultimate life form, Tyrant!
Stop it! Wesker, you're pitiful! And you're gay! Please stop laughing at me. I worked so hard.
I mean, Doomsday. Sure, the CGI is okay, but this design is terrible. He barely looks anything like Doomsday. And the concept art for him looks so much better and it fits the character. As the internet has pointed out, he looks like a cross between the Uruk-hai and cave trolls from Lord of the Rings. But more importantly though, why didn't Lex just create the monster to kill Superman instead of this crazy convoluted plan to try and manipulate Batman to killing him? I appreciate the idea of having a backup plan, but the narrative makes it seem as though this was his plan all along. Like what would happen if Batman just killed Superman? What would we do with Doomsday then? Some might say that he could just abort the operation. The movie doesn't even specify that he can even do that. In fact, it seems as though the opposite is true, considering how close to completion Doomsday is at this point, so that doesn't really seem possible. He can't control it considering that it tries to kill him, and if Superman didn't catch the punch, he would be dead. What would make this better is if he planted a bomb inside Doomsday and detonated it when he turns against him, but it failed. At least it will make it seem as though he has some foresight. But as with everything else about this plan, it somehow still works out for him at the end of the day with no consequences for him. And this is one of several reasons why Lex is just such a horrible, horrible villain. He's so annoying, stupid, has one of the most laughable motivations out of any villain I've ever heard, which isn't even consistent as well as his ideology. He looks nothing like the Lex we know, he's basically the character in name only. He is honestly one of the worst villains I've ever seen, and he is the main driving force for its entire movie. Superman and Doomsday start fighting Metropolis, and Superman barely uses any of his other powers against him instead of just opting to punch him and not do anything else. The government interferes, and Doomsday should be a clear indicator that they need Superman to defend them against extraterrestrial threats. Doomsday retaliates, becoming a Dark Souls 3 boss, and Diana sees this while she's about to leave on a Turkish Airlines plane, which is the main sponsor in this movie, and she leaves the flight. Batman takes Doomsday and flies him to space, and while this is happening, the strategic geniuses from the government decide to nuke the both of them while they're in space to avoid any civilian casualties. Which is done beyond relief, because why would they do that when Superman's clearly winning? I know people will respond that Superman's a controversial figure, that they might want him dead, but as I said about 50 words ago, why kill him when you need him to fight against other outer world threats? It's funny that this is the only one of Steyer's movies when they launched a nuke when they could have done that to the world engine in the Indian Ocean, or having Cyborg launch the nukes when it's established they could use every one of them in the world. But instead, the one time the nuke is fired is the one time it shouldn't have been fired. The nuke hits them and it appears that they're both dead. But nope. Doomsday survives and is now juiced up from the nuclear energy. Batman concocts a plan to kill the Kryptonite Spear, which is still near the building where he fought Superman, which begs the question why he left it there, especially when Lex could have taken it to use it against Superman later on down the line. Batman attacks Doomsday in order to goad it into following him. I don't get why. Doomsday almost kills them, he could start attacking civilians. Just let him chill on the island while you go get the spear. Superman regenerates from being nuked. Not sure why he's still in space while Doomsday was next to him and he landed on Earth, but logical consistency isn't this movie's strong suit. Turning out I was right about Batman's plan not being smart because Doomsday shoots him down. Before the laser can fry Bruce, Wonder Woman swoops in and saves him. Yeah, you guys, don't you see that? It's the DC Trinity on the big screen. Isn't this so awesome? Sure, the circumstances surrounding the entire thing may be retarded, but man, is this cool! Speaking of retarded, why is Wonder Woman helping out now instead of Man of Steel when the world was in danger? Why was this bad enough to warrant her coming out of retirement, but not that? I mean, she's left for 100 years, and she didn't help during the Holocaust or World War II, or in Man of Steel, but this is worse than all of those, I guess. Plus, the Steyer cut reveals that General Swanwick is Martian Manhunter. It doesn't help at all, unlike what happens in Man of Tomorrow. What happens next is hilarious. Doomsday releases this shockwave of electricity and it shreds all the buildings around it, but Batman just hides behind some debris, somehow surviving that, and Lois is somehow still alive too, now that she's trying to retrieve the spear. Yep, that's right, she threw it away, and now she's trying to retrieve it. Superman and Wonder Woman fight the monster for a bit, and the fight scene is really mediocre. It's not as bad as the BVS fight, but nowhere near as good as either the warehouse one, or even the other Doomsday battles from other DC movies. It's mostly just the heroes and the monsters slap each other in a gray environment, unlike something like the Death of Superman, where they use the environment to their advantage. And the fight scene there, as well as in Superman Doomsday, is brutal. It's more brutal there than it is here, despite this movie being more darker and edgier than other DC stuff. It's honestly very tame in comparison to the other two. We get this Harry Potter beamlock effect going on, and from what I heard, it took about a whole year to perfect. God bless the VFX artists that work on these movies nowadays, because they're so overworked and underpaid. Out of nowhere, Superman conveniently hears Lois struggling to survive. Yeah, the same guy who couldn't hear a bomb going off when it was right next to him, so once his mother's voice, manages to hear Lois when he was even specifically listening to her. Very remarkable consistency there, Zach. Superman saves her and brings out the spear. Batman avoids the monster where we get a Dark Knight Returns cover homage. Wonder Woman Luke Skywalker's Doomsday's hand and a spike grows out of it. Clark tells Lois he loves her, that this is his world, and he picks up the spear. This is it. He's going for it. He's sacrificing himself to stop Doomsday. This is his character arc of the film. I've been on record criticizing Superman in his 5-movie arc that he's supposed to have for these movies. This video alone should be an indicator of that. One thing I've said before is that despite supposedly going through a multi-movie character arc, by the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, he hasn't grown or changed even a little bit from how he was in Man of Steel. I remember getting some pushback on this from one guy claiming that in this movie, Clark sacrifices himself to stop Doomsday, that he doesn't think that the Clark in Man of Steel ever would have done that. But this is ignoring that in Man of Steel, Clark was willing to give himself up to Zod. He had no idea what that meant for him, especially since Zod was literally threatening Earth. For all he knew, he could have died because of that, which he very nearly did. The only difference between that and this is that in BVS, he's willing to go for it despite knowing he's going to die, where in Man of Steel, he had a very likely chance he was going to die, along with the other times he's helped out at his own expense. So this isn't anything new for him to do. And this moment where he's like, this is my world, comes out of nowhere. Earlier he just said that no one stays good in this world. That was before Batman tried to murder him. So what changed? The fact that Batman spared him? When the only reason he did that is because their moms had the same name? The problem is that there's no bridge between him distrusting humanity and then loving them to the point where he's willing to sacrifice himself for them. He just comes at the conclusion with no revelations or anything that should change his view that he's had for the entire movie, which is the main reason why his arc falls flat. Both in this movie and his multiple movie arc, he never grows or changes, so I have a hard time believing that Snyder fans when they say that the Superman we want will happen at the end of Justice League 3. But considering the plans to make him evil in Justice League 2, and him remain like that for most of 3, makes it really hard for that to happen. Like him becoming evil because of Lois dying is horrible by itself, but it also means that any character growth he might have had in the first 3 movies is going to be thrown right out the window, only for that to be undone by Flash using his time travel Deus Ex Machina powers, which he uses at the end of Justice League 1. So how am I supposed to believe that he's going to become the proper Superman when for most of his runtime he barely resembles him in terms of characterization, especially when any moments that he does seem like Superman are few and far between. And according to my friend, the Meme Repository, who has read the leaks, which you should check out by the way, because they're hilarious for all the wrong reasons. Anyway, he said that Clark doesn't really become Superman by the end of 3. He's pretty much the same as he is at the end of Man of Steel, and he's a big DC fan. Way more than I am if you have a hard time believing that, considering all the material I've referenced this whole time. So when he says that, you know that must be the case. For all of those reasons, I just can't care when he dies in this scene. Sure, the scene itself is so dumb because why didn't he just throw the spear at Doomsday, not stabbing at it through the head or behind where Doomsday can't puncture him, or just having Wonder Woman stab him while he holds down the lasso of truth. And that's honestly not the main thing that irritates me. It's how contrived the setup is in this whole movie and the fact that we're supposed to care when Lois is sad that he's dead. Their relationship is supposed to be the main emotional linchpin of the entire series, but yet I and many others just don't care. Their relationship just sucks. I'm sorry, but it does. I've already been over that. I can just keep saying that the writing of this movie sucks, but I don't have to since at this point I think I made my case as to why. We're at the very final parts of this movie and I'm tired of working on this, so let's just lightning round this. The SWAT move in inside the spaceship to capture Lex, who was wanting to see more sequel setup with Steppenwolf. Yay, can't wait to see that. He's thrown into prison where he's shaved bald, but it really doesn't suit Jesse Eisenberg at all. We get resolution to Batfleck's arc, where he spares Lex instead of killing him, even though he kills after the Martha scene. Then threatens to kill Joker in the Snyder Cut, and I think he's also supposed to kill more in Justice Leagues 2 and 3, as well as killing in the Flash movie. So, no matter which way you look at this, whether solely through the Snyderverse or just the canon DCEU, this payoff is completely hollow. Made even more hollow when he tells Lex he's sending him to Arkham Asylum, not so that way he can get treatment, but rather to make his life hell. He leaves and we get our last scene with Lex completely losing his mind, blabbering about how aliens are coming, which I'm so glad I do not have to talk about him again. We have 2 funerals of Superman and Clark. Not sure how to explain Clark's death, or how they're going to explain him coming back when he's resurrected while the whole Earth is mourning over Superman with they wanting him dead throughout the entire movie. But now that he is dead, they're sad that he's gone. I know some will say it's because he sacrificed himself to save them, but he did that in Man of Steel and almost died stopping Zod in the World Engine, as well as the other good things he's done, but no one cared about that for whatever reason. Bruce anonymously paid for Clark's funeral, and he's remorseful about trying to kill him, saying that he failed him in life, and that he'll make it up to him in death, which is his entire character in Snyder's Justice League. Which is really funny, since in the Elite sequel scripts, it's confirmed that he and Lois banged right after Clark died, even though the first time Lois met him was when he tried to murder her boyfriend, and that results in Lois being pregnant with her and Bruce's child, creating a love triangle between Bruce, Lois, and Clark. Essentially assassinating Batfleck's character, not just in an adaptational sense, but also just in the confines of the Snyderverse. Awesome! Lois pours some dirt to Clark's grave, and it starts levitating, which is never elaborated on ever again, and after that, the movie ends. What an actual disaster. Oh my god. This movie is a complete train wreck from pretty much start to finish. There is almost no natural cause and effect. No satisfying build-ups and payoffs. Awful dialogue. Terrible character motivations. Poorly written character arcs. A boatload of plot holes, conveniences, and contrivances. A lot of things that straight up make no sense. Fight scenes were outside one truly fantastic one, are mediocre at best to terrible at worst. Slow, bloated pacing. Unnecessary sequel setup. Some of which is never going to be paid off. Underdeveloped side characters. Terrible world building. And mostly stilted acting. This movie is an abomination in almost every sense of the word. And to make it very clear, the Ultimate Edition, the so-called good version of the movie, doesn't alleviate these problems in the slightest. In some cases, makes them worse. Just like how the Snyder Cut doesn't redeem Justice League. So nice try, Snyder fans. Watching this movie is torture, and I've seen it 3 times so far in my life, and I hope to never see it again. This movie may not be the worst movie ever made, but in all honesty, it's my least favorite. Not to say there are no positives at all, the cinematography is great, as well as most of the effects. Some of the performances are pretty good, with Jeremy Irons as Alfred being the main standout for me, and honestly the best character not just this movie, but in Snyder's universe as a whole. As I said earlier, the warehouse fight scene is great, and it's the only scene I could watch without feeling dead inside. And the soundtrack of this movie from Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL is an absolute banger, which I unfortunately can't play due to copyright reasons. Go check it out on Spotify, because it's awesome. And that's about it, really. That's a very short list of positives for a 3-hour movie. That's all generally I can say right now. If you can think of more positives, let me know, but otherwise, I don't have much left to say. This movie is what truly started the downfall of the DCU as a whole. And you might say that was Man of Steel due to how bad that was, but that was the very start of this universe. If the first movie of a trilogy, or even more movies, sucks, the sequels can at least look back and improve upon it. This movie tries so hard to set the rest of the universe, but it fails miserably. In just the second movie, Superman's already dead. We're about to start setting up the Justice League with the main trinity already united together. Robin is dead, and Batman's already gone way down the downtrodden Frank Miller Batman. It's supposed to have a redemption arc in this movie, but we never get to see how it's like beforehand, and we just have to infer it. We gain insight to what's going to happen with Superman turning evil, Darkseid, Steppenwolf, the Parademons, the Omega Symbol, Flash time traveling. All of this is just rushed, like a fat guy running so hard he can that he sprints at the very beginning but trips and falls after taking like 5 steps. This is definitely what many others have done before me have already pointed out of WB rushing out their universe just to catch up with Marvel, and it's caused a domino effect which has crippled DC on film as a whole. The movie, despite having a very good opening box office, tanked hard after that due to how nobody liked this movie. Having one of the biggest box office drops in history to where they didn't even meet the $1 billion mark, despite having 2 of the biggest icons all of media fighting each other. After this, they tempered both the original Suicide Squad and Justice League, firing Zack Snyder and using the death of his daughter as the unfortunately perfectly timed scapegoat. And no, Snydernoids, Kevin Feige didn't arrange her death. That's stupid. And look how those movies turned out. Justice League flopped hard at the box office, even hard at BVS, causing them pretty much get rid of the interconnected story, and just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. And with most of the movies after that being okay or it at best, to awful at worst. So I'm not saying Zack Snyder is the sole reason that the DCEU failed, but he was a major contributing factor, as well as the incompetence of Warner Bros. At the higher levels. So for the people that like claiming the DCEU constantly flopping after Snyder is proof that he shouldn't have left, his movies were doing great after, with a major drop for BVS, as I've already said earlier, and Man of Steel was just a moderate success anyway, despite being the first live-action Superman movie in years. And that's the last thing I wanted to mention before ending this conversation for today. The Snyder fan base. They are notorious at this point for basically being cultists. Many of them have shown for not being able to accept even the modicum of criticism against their movies, and for constantly shitting on the MCU, the rest of the DCEU, or just other DC stuff in general. They can't just stop saying that they're good movies. They keep saying it's peak fiction, or the best superhero movies ever made, or even some of the best movies ever made, and shit on anything that is well more liked than they are. They keep claiming how everything made after his movies was somehow blueprinted after Snyder, like how Rocket mourning over his friends is somehow copied after Superman mourning over Zod. So apparently Snyder invented emotions in movies. It's like the MCU fan base who do the exact same thing and keep acting like it's peak storytelling, even for the really bad parts of the MCU like Phases 4 and 5. So when someone like Quentin Tarantino criticizes them anyway, they are so butthurt about it, it makes the fan base seem like a bunch of children. Well, let's be honest, it's either children, or man-children. I honestly wouldn't mind the fan base so much if they just weren't so insane. They make the Disney Star Wars fans seem reasonable by comparison. I don't mind if you like these movies, but getting so unbelievably defensive and mad that there are other DC movies like the Joker or the Batman that are more popular, or that the new DCU is coming, so crapping over James Gunn and Matt Reeves is so childish and petty, and it just shows how you tied your identity so much to Snyder and his films, that it's going to get you nowhere in life. But they can't just move on. They got an inch with Zack Snyder's Justice League, and now they want a mile. They want all the canceled movies back, and even the Emerald edition of Justice League, just to see Jon Stewart's Green Lantern. But guys, that's not going to happen. If you actually care about Zack Snyder as more than just a creator, you support his decision to not continue the movies that he has no interest in, and just support him comes out next. Like the movie Rebel Moon. Sure, that could be just as bad like the Army of the Dead.
You can't keep getting away with it!
But at least it's his own story, and isn't harming a previously established brand, and I wish the best for him, and it's sad that he lost his daughter. As much as I hate his movies, I can at least have some basic human empathy for the guy, and just say that you didn't deserve that. But for now, I just like to say I'm glad this universe is coming to an end after Aquaman 2, and that maybe, hopefully, the new DCU as well as the Joker and Batman sequels can salvage the reputation of DC on film. Well, that was a long one, but I hope you enjoy it. This will be my last time covering these movies, and let's pray to God that this makes it through copyright, unlike what happened last time. Well, this is Skids, signing off.